It is time for the HR Happy Hour work break for a Friday. Yes, it's true. You're not seeing single, you're seeing solo. I'm flying solo today. That's okay. I've done this a couple of times before. I think we'll be fine. It is a Friday. It is not quite happy hour time where I live in the Eastern time zone of the US, but it's close enough. We did say we were going to make this a Friday happy hour show. I did prepare a cocktail for the show. I will share that information here on the screen. I made this. It's called the Southside Fizz. Mint leaves, gin, lemon juice, club soda, kind of like a mojito vibe to it. Muddle up the mint leaves in the shaker, gin, lemon juice, shake it up, boom, top with club soda. Here you go. Little mint floating in there for a garnish, which sunk into the cocktail. But cheers, everyone. Early happy hour for me and for you too. Why not? Hope you're having a drink with me or you'll have one later, and hope you had a great week. A couple of things I wanted to talk about today really quickly. One is I saw in the news today, and we mentioned this on yesterday's work break or on Wednesdays, I can't remember, but we talked about the miracle on the Hudson flight and the fact that we actually, Trisha and I know a gentleman who was a passenger on that flight, and we've had him on the show a couple of times on the podcast. His name is Dick Richardson. Today was actually the 12th anniversary of the miracle on the Hudson flight. And it's an incredible story, of course, and it never gets old, like rereading about it. And there's some great YouTube videos as well, where they kind of do like a flight simulator thing. And then for the audio, they have the actual conversations going on between the pilots of the plane and air traffic control about what they're going to do and figuring out the problem and what's going to happen. And it's if you've never watched that YouTube video, I really recommend it because it's pretty intense and it's really cool. And it's kind of cool also to watch, knowing that everybody on that plane got off safely. No one was seriously injured. Certainly no one was killed. And it's always a great, great story. And in that realm, like, we were traveling so much before the pandemic. I was always a little bit of an airline geek, an airplane geek, and it was fun to fly different types of aircraft. And another thing that was in the news this week I wanted to mention was the Boeing 747, right? That iconic giant jumbo jet, right? That probably started being built maybe in the 70s or the 80s. Anyway, just this week, it was announced that the Boeing Corporation took its very last order to produce new 747s. So they're going to make 4 more. They're just used for freight primarily these days around the world. So they're building 4 more to be sold to a air freight company. And no more after this, no more new 747s. I was lucky enough back in I would say maybe in the 90s, I flew on 747s quite a lot, especially transatlantic. Man, it was a great plane and a great way to fly. So shout out to a great kind of American innovation, a great plane, and something we'll aviation geeks certainly are going to miss. One of the other things that I wanted to mention that we talk about a lot, and I talk about a lot on our Alexa show, because I'm a bit of in addition to being an aviation geek, I'm a labor market geek, which is some of the updates in the labor market. Because what's been interesting to follow, once the pandemic set in, right, and the big lockdowns happened late March and early April, right? April was kind of the bottom of the job market here in the US, right? In terms of the most people unemployed, the highest unemployment rate. There was about 22 million or so people unemployed, and the unemployment rate was 14.7%. What had been happened steadily since April, right? Each month, jobs were being added. Unemployment rate was going down, and that was consistent all the way through up until kind of the end of the year, right? The last jobs report that came out for December showed an actual loss in jobs of 140,000 jobs. And the job openings and labor turnover summary report, which is my favorite report, and I've talked about it on the show, the JOLTS report, which really examines hiring and separations and job openings, that just came out this week as well. That's backdated by 1 month from the normal labor market report. So it's a November report instead of December. But job openings have flattened out. They're about 6.5 million in the US, and they've been at about that number for a few months now, and they're not really moving up. And the hiring and the separations are kind of stabilizing as well. So we're not gaining jobs, and we're not getting enough people back to work. We're all hopeful, and most economists as well predict that due to stimulus that's likely to be passed with the new administration, as well as vaccines getting a wider and wider rollout, that we'll see more and more people getting back to work and more businesses reopening. Let's hope so, because it would be really, really sad to have that rebound in jobs and in the economy kind of peter out for a while. One more thing I wanted to mention in that same light, though, again, related of getting people back to work and companies reopening, I think there's going to be a really interesting issue around whether or not companies are going to try to incent or basically pay employees to actually get COVID-19 vaccinations. And I read a story earlier today about 3 specific companies that are actually doing this. That was Dollar General, Instacart, and Trader Joe's are actually trying to incent their employees to go get the vaccine. So, for example, Dollar General is offering their employees 4 hours of pay in order to go get to take the time off to go get a vaccine. Instacart's offering a $25 stipend to their drivers, and Trader Joe's is offering 2 hours of pay per dose. The basic thinking is this: we don't want to have our employees to have to make that determination or make that value judgment. Is, can I afford to take the time off I need to take to go get a vaccine versus getting the vaccine, right? These companies want their employees to be able to get that vaccination, and they're trying to, and it's not so much incent them, but just kind of keep them whole, right? Like, don't force them to take time off from their work in order to go get a vaccine, which I think for the companies, that's a benefit for them and hopefully a benefit for employees as well. All right, so flying solo, last thing I want to leave you with, if you're a United States viewer, if you're so inclined, this weekend, I saw this today as well. The 2 sort of big lotto jackpot deals, right, that happened in the United States. I'm not a lotto guy. The only reason I know this was literally on like the CNN news this morning. But the Mega Millions jackpot and the Powerball jackpots apparently are enormous this weekend, enormous enough that it was actually reported on the news in the mainstream, like morning news as a story. So maybe get out there and get your ticket, and then whatever problems you have will, they may not go away, but at least they won't seem so important if you manage to cash in on that. Maybe I will as well. I probably have enough time to get out there and get a ticket too. So anyway, it's been a great week on the work break. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us all week long and listening to the podcast as well. We'll be back next week with a lot of really good stuff, of course. All the show archives, this show, the Happy Hour show, the Alexa show, some other show I'll probably invent next week. Everything's at hrhappyhour.net. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you next week.